because my mind was so quiet throughout the hike, I had this huge moment of clarity where I was like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm doing to myself. And I saw this path of what would happen if I continued doing the same thing. But then I also saw this new path of what would happen if I started to change. And so I just became addicted to that. I loved feeling present and just having those moments of clarity. And so I just kept hiking. And that's why I said I truly believe it saved my life at that point.
Welcome. This is Lauren Stites, and you are listening to Her Side of the Trail. Today we are speaking with Nichole Iby. Nichole gets personal with us and discusses the positive effects that hiking has had on both her physical and mental health. She also shares about the journals that she created, where hikers not only can track their stats, but also reflect on the things that they've learned and seen along the trail. So let's get into it. Hi, Nichole. Thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited to speak with you. How's it going?
It's good. It's actually going to be 60 degrees here. So I'm happy.
I
we
know,
got
the
snow
sun's
last
coming
week.
out.
I'm so excited. One step closer to summer.
Winter has extended itself, unfortunately, here too. So where are you located? Where are you based?
So I'm up by the White Mountains in New Hampshire.
Nice. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I'm so jealous of you. You're so close to all the amazing mountains up there. I have yet to get up to New Hampshire, and that is on my bucket list to hike up there.
You'll love it.
Did you grow up in New Hampshire?
I grew up in Mass.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in New Hampshire and Maine just because New England, everything's so close together. But I always knew I wanted to be closer to the mountains because I used to have a 2.5 to 3 hour drive and now I have a half-hour drive. So I feel very grateful.
So since you grew up in New England, did you grow up hiking? Was that something that you did as a recreation as a child?
We would hike every now and then as a family. We would go to Acadia a lot and do those types of trails. But my sister and I grew up competitively dancing. So we had no life outside of that. And the days that I did have off, I was like, I just want to do nothing.
You're like, can I just lay on the couch? And yeah, that's amazing though. So you were a dancer for a while.
Yeah, pretty much my whole life until I graduated college. And I was like, I need a break.
You're like, I'm done with this. That's okay though, but that's nice. That's a great activity. And hiking is a great transition, right? I mean, you're still moving your body, you're getting yourself in all kinds of contorted positions sometimes. So dancing probably helped that.
I felt very grateful that I was flexible because, in New Hampshire, we're climbing up some steep rocks and I'm like, hey, I'm just really glad I'm limber to be able to handle
you're twisting
this.
yourself in all kinds of positions, just trying to get up. Yeah. So that made for a good background for you. So then if you were dancing for so long and then you decided to stop that, what made you decide to take up hiking as an activity?
In college, my mental health kind of just was slowly deteriorating. And, growing up, I always kind of struggled with anxiety and depression, but I just didn't really acknowledge it to its full extent or understand it fully until I was older. And then in college, there's so much stress on you when you're in college because it's the first time, especially when you're getting closer to graduate, that you don't have something completely lined up. You don't know what's next. And it's the first time you have to kind of create that for yourself.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
I'm so young. How am I supposed to figure out what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life? I think everything just came to a head at that point. And I ended up struggling with an eating disorder in college. And so graduating, I was just in a really bad headspace. I wasn't really doing much that summer. I wasn't really getting out of bed. And then it wasn't to this day, I do not know what put this thought in my head or, what changed. But I just remember waking up one day so vividly and being like, my life is never going to change unless I begin to change it. And so I was like, I just felt this renewed energy. And I remember Googling what to do when you're sad. And it was go for a walk. So I called up a friend. I'm like, hey, let's go for a hike. And that hike is truly what changed the trajectory of my life. And that's why I said it saved my life. It gave me the opportunity to be so present because I feel like so often we don't have many opportunities nowadays where it forces you to be present, right? You have to focus on where you're stepping so you don't trip. And then that in turn allows you to kind of have this sensory overload in the best way where you're smelling everything and you're hearing everything around you. And it was just the first time that I felt very free from my overthinking thoughts, my negative thoughts. And when I got to the summit, I remember crying. Everyone around me, everyone at the summit was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. It's just me.
Don't you always cry when you reach the summit? Come on now.
And it was this interesting point where I just had so much, because my mind was so quiet throughout the hike. I had this huge moment of clarity where I was like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm doing to myself. And I saw this path of what would happen if I continued doing the same thing. But then I also saw this new path of what would happen if I started to change. And so I just became addicted to that. I loved, feeling present and just having those moments of clarity. And so I just kept hiking. And that's why I said I truly believe it saved my life at that point.
In preparation for speaking with you, because I know what an impact hiking had on your mental health, because you've talked about that, on your social media and on your website, I actually looked because I'm like, I know hiking has a great positive impact. And there was a study done that said that if you spend 90 minutes outside in nature versus like in an urban setting, shows a decreased activity in a region of the brain associated with a key factor in depression. So science has shown, get outside, be outside in nature. It's going to do amazing for your mental health, no matter what. Just be among the trees and the rocks. And
Yeah.
what you just said makes sense, because you have to focus, you have to have that mental clarity. You're giving yourself space, outside of all the chaos of everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, which was really interesting, was because I wanted to keep hiking, I was like, okay, now I want to hike like longer and more difficult trails. But in order to do that, I have to feed myself. And so I started looking at food as fuel rather than like this huge, like negative thing that I always thought of it. And so then in turn, that helped, start my healing process with my eating disorder. And then and I started conquering these longer and more difficult trails. And then I started to feel more confident in myself, because you're like, wow, look at what I can do. Look at what my body can do. I pushed through mental barriers. And so it boosts your confidence in yourself and your abilities. And so I just think overall, being outdoors and hiking I feel like it has far more benefits than even we realize. And it's one of those things that every time I step outside, I learn something new. And even if I didn't know I needed to learn that, it taught me it. And so it's just really special.
Yeah, you get a new appreciation for what your body is capable of, what it can handle, what it can do. And I'm so happy for you that it helped adjust your mentality of your body and your relationship with food. Because people do have horrible relationships with food. They look at food, they assign a moral value to food, whether, it's good or bad and things like that. And we, as a society, we can get into this a whole different episode, but as a society, we definitely need to move past that. And I'm so glad that hiking has given you that ability to do that, because not everyone has been able to do that. So where was that hike that made you cry at the top of the summit?
So it's actually Mount Monadnock, which, if you don't know, it's the second most hiked mountain in the world, behind, I think, Mount Fuji, which is crazy.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that popular.
Yeah. And so, of course, like, I'm hiking it on a Saturday, and I get to the summit. There's so many people up there. It's in southern New Hampshire, so it was a lot easier for me to get to than, the White Mountains. So it was kind of the hike that I kept going back to, because I'm like, oh, this is only an hour versus a 3-hour drive for me.
I love that it was such a popular hike too, that had you have this, this moment of clarity for you. So now you know how beneficial hiking is for you, for your mental health, for your physical health, all of that. You know how good it is for you. So how often do you try to get outside and hike? I know we're busy, we all work. It's hard to get out all the time every weekend. So how often do you try to get out?
I mean, ideally, I would love to get out once a weekend, but
Yeah.
Weather and work kind of doesn't do that. I just try to get out as much as I can. And I used to it used to affect me more mentally, when I wouldn't get out every weekend. But now I kind of try to incorporate other things. Like, I don't have to necessarily hike to the top of a mountain. Like, I could go for a hike in the woods. I could go for a run outside. Just spending any time outside definitely helps.
Yeah, go to your local park and walk among the trees.
I posted something recently where I was like, a hike doesn't have to be the top of a mountain. And then where people were like, that's a walk in the woods. I'm like, but it's not.
It's still a hike.
It's whatever you make of it, And I think, so I try to get outside as much as I can. Hiking, I try to do it once a week. But I mean, this past winter, I'm sure you've experienced it too.
Yes.
It's been so cold.
So cold.
I hiked once.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening?
It was definitely awful this winter. We got out much less than, I think, the whole month of January. I'm not even sure we got out at all, because it was just so bitter cold. There was just no incentive to get out there.
It's like, I don't want to be out in -10.
No. And we've hiked in like 20 something degree weather, but like almost like we were there, we were at the place, so we had to do it, or else, what else were you gonna do?
Yeah.
But when you're at home in your cozy, warm home, you don't want to go out in the teens. That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, and especially with the White Mountains, because, they're not the tallest mountains in the US, like a lot of people underestimate them, but those mountains have crazy weather. And it's like in
Oh,
the winter too, it will be like, even if it's like 30 degrees down at the trailhead, the summits can have 100-mile-an-hour winds and it's -50 with the wind chill, which is just
yeah,
crazy. And I'm
and
like,
you
I
don't want
don't,
to
I don't
subject
want
yourself to
to.
that.
No, it's not the safe. It's not fun. you
No,
know?
no. I guess you noticed then that, like, during those winter months, did you notice a difference in your mental health because you weren't able to get out as often? Or, like, everyone gets the winter blues, but like, I definitely felt it more this year because we didn't get out as much. Did you feel the same?
So this winter was a lot different for me. I will say in the past, it would definitely affect me. Like I could feel myself getting antsy and kind of like I just wouldn't be nice. It was almost like hangry, but with hiking.
I get that. I get that.
Um, but this winter I kind of went into it differently because I had a feeling that it was just going to be like really, really cold because the fall was cold. And so I was like, I'm going to go into this winter and think of it as like a very restorative period. Maybe I'm not getting out as much, but it's allowing me to recharge. So then when the warm weather does come, I am ready to hit the trails, hiking twice a weekend if I can. So I kind of had a different mindset around it this winter, but there are times where even if I don't realize it's affecting me or I'm being a little bit more moody, like I go for a hike, I come back, I'm like, wow, I feel 10 million times better. And I didn't realize that I was in the headspace I was in until after I came back feeling better from that hike.
100%. I even I sometimes will recognize it and, I'll be like, all right, guys, I say to my family, I'm like, we're going to go out this weekend. Like mom needs to get out. And my son even realizes that too. He's had some moments where, he's a teenager, so whatever. And he goes, I think we just need to go for a hike this weekend. I'm like,
Oh, I love
awesome.
that.
Let's do it. Let's get out. Like, even if it's just for a couple hours, like it helps immensely. So let's talk about some of the more challenging trails that you've done, because you've been all over. You've been so many places. I've had so much fun kind of scrolling through your feed and looking at all the fun places you've been. What are some of the other trails that have really challenged you, that really have shaped you?
It's funny because I love traveling, but when I travel, I try not to plan too many difficult hikes because my husband enjoys being outdoors, but he doesn't enjoy it to the extent that I do. So I'm like, I don't want to put him on like a 15-mile trail in the middle of Iceland,
Gee, thanks, hon.
So a lot of the most difficult trails I've conquered have been in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has a lot of hiking lists. And so when I first started hiking, I was like, okay, I want a goal. What do I want to do? So I started hiking the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers. And I remember the last year of me doing it, I was sort of just over the list. I was like, because I just started to get into this mindset. I wasn't living up here yet. So I was like, okay, every time I go up north, I have to do a hike that I haven't done so I can complete the list. And so that last summer that I was like, I'm going to finish it. I ended up hiking like 22 of them or something. And so a lot of them were longer hikes because I was peak bagging. And so one of them was, I think it ended up being 21 miles with like 7,000 feet of elevation. How I did that, I don't know. I think it was like a haze. Like I barely remember it, but I checked off like 7 of the mountains. And it was like one of those moments where I finished and it didn't really hit me what I just did. And then the next day I was like, wow. I was like, that's really cool that I, first of all, have trained enough to get to a point where I can do that. And secondly, like I just hiked 21 miles in a day, no matter how you split that. Like that's
In one day.
crazy.
21 miles. That is totally insane.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, the body is capable of some insane things.
So much. Good for you. Good for you. So when did you finish that goal then?
2020.
2020. Awesome.
Yeah.
So did you have like a new goal? Did you set did you set a new goal for yourself?
Because I was so focused on that list for so long, I was like, you know what? Now I just kind of want to enjoy the mountains. Like I want to hike my favorite mountains 7 times, like, and I don't want to feel bad about it. And I just want to explore new trails and have fun and not have anything kind of set in stone. So there's other lists that I'm slowly working on, but my main goal is just to hike with friends and enjoy it. Yeah. So, which is good.
Yeah,
it's been
that's
fun.
important. That's important because you don't want to take the fun out of it. Was that your like I did it trail, that 21 mile, or was there another trail that you were like kind of intimidated by, that you conquered, that you're very proud of yourself for conquering?
So actually, the weekend before that, I hiked my longest mile or my longest mileage until I hiked that 21-mile one, and it was 18 miles, but it's one of like the most beautiful hikes in my opinion in New Hampshire because you're literally in the middle of nowhere. No matter how you try to get to those summits, it's going to be a long hike. And I remember I was just so nervous for it because I've never been on my feet for that long because how many opportunities do you get to like walk 18 miles? And I remember just because the views were so breathtaking, it was the perfect day, not a cloud in the sky, no wind, midsummer, no bugs. I was like,
Oh my
it was
goodness.
just, it was amazing. And I mean, at the end, my feet were blistered and I was tired, but I was just like, wow, that's so cool. And then that in turn helped me mentally go into that 21-mile hike of like, I just did 18 miles. Like, you can do
You're
a
like,
little
what's
bit
3 more?
more.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which I will
you can
say,
handle that.
it's 3 more is a lot more.
It's still a lot more. But I mean, that's like the equivalent of like, training for a marathon, right? They're doing all these long runs before they tackle their 26 miles. And that's what you did too, right? You did these long hikes and then you tackled your 21 miles. So that's amazing. Um, you've talked about how hiking has helped your mental health, and is that what inspired you to create these journals? You have 3 journals, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can you talk to me about them, describe them to me and what their purpose is?
Yeah. So when I was originally hiking the 48 4,000 footers and it got to the point where I was like, I'm just so done with this list, I was mainly just hiking to check them off the list. And I kind of lost that, you know, taking the time to reflect on the journey and things like that. And I catch myself doing that every now and then where I'm like, oh, I'm in a bad mood. I just need a hike. And then I hike and I feel great and it's a great experience, but I'm still not taking that extra time to kind of reflect. Like, because like I mentioned, every single hike I learned something new. And so to be able to write that down somewhere just felt so important to me this year. And so I created a journal to allow everyone to not only track stats if they want to, but give them some prompts of things to think about. Like, what did you learn? Like, what, plants did you see? Just like like almost forcing you to take more time on your hike to slow down. Because I think so often we can just, especially when it's really steep, I'm like, I just want to get to the summit and enjoy my snack, So I think with these prompts, it kind of forces you to appreciate the journey because the summit is only like 5% of the entire hike. And so I really wanted to create something. And then I created it for myself originally. And I was like, this is cool. And then I wanted to share it with others. And so I have like a general one that anyone can use. But then I also have one for, the New Hampshire 4,000 footers and the 52 with the view list, which are 2 pretty popular lists in New Hampshire. And it's been really fun. I used it before I, shared it with the world. And I was like, this is just so cool because I think, like I said, you can learn so much on a hike, but sometimes if you don't reflect on it, it kind of just leaves your brain. And so I wanted somewhere that I could write down and also look back of like, wow, look at like how much I've progressed. If I was like, working through something,
Oh yeah,
like this is like
definitely.
everything that look like I can have the progression in my hand. And I think that's really cool because I think sometimes when you're going through something, it can be really, easy to kind of forget all of the work
Where
that
you
you put
started.
in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just a nice area to be like, I did put in a lot of work and, I'm happy I am where I am, but I put in the work and and so I just think it's nice to be able to reflect on a lot of different things. And
No,
I made it flexible enough that you can, reflect on your hike however you want. Like you can take it like how I do and kind of reflect on how am I doing mentally? What did I work through? But you can put a picture in there or you can draw. Like you can I made it so you can remember your hike however you want to, which I think is fun.
I think that's great. I love that. That's one of the things that I like, that we hike as a family, because the kids, they make us stop and like, oh, look at that tree over there. Isn't that an interesting tree? Oh, look, there's an animal over here, things like that. But also when we're done, when we're in the car on the drive back, we're like, all right, let's talk about our favorite parts of the trail. Like, what did we enjoy the most? What did we find more challenging? Things like that. So your journal is like the equivalent of like us doing that. If you don't have, 2 kids in the back seat who are forced to chat with you. who are forced to interact on that hour and a half ride home. The journal is a great opportunity to do that. And you can bring it with you, sit at the summit and talk about everything that you did on the way up, all the challenging parts of the way up.
I think it's just fun to reflect. Like I said, I think nowadays we're just go, go, go all the time. And so just to be able to, hiking forces you to be present, but then to also force yourself to be present after and reflect on your hike, I think just, it's only going to help with everything. And
I agree.
It's just nice to take a moment to yourself too.
I think that's great that you created that. And then now you're sharing that with the world too, which I think is awesome. Before I let you go, I've been asking everyone this question, which I feel like is kind of difficult. I might know your answer just based on what we've talked about, but if you could only do one kind of hike for the rest of your life, would you want to hike to a waterfall or would you want to hike to a view?
Okay, well, this is where my brain goes. If I'm in Iceland, I want to hike to a waterfall.
Because you get the bluest of blue waterfalls there.
Iceland waterfalls just hit different. Yeah, I think a view.
A view. Yeah. Views are it. They're really beautiful. I mean, and you can always guarantee, a view. Waterfalls, you can't always guarantee that they're going to be there.
I mean, unless you're hiking on a cloudy day. There's some times where I hike and it's like beautiful when I'm at the trailhead and then I get to the summit and I'm like, oh, we're in the clouds. Great.
That happened to us this past weekend. It was a little rainy, a little foggy. I'm like, oh, we'll go up anyway. Because really it was the hike itself was the challenge. I mean, there was a view, but it wasn't like, that wasn't the main part of the hike. And we got to the top and you can like just barely see like below the clouds. Like you could see a little bit of like the river and the little town there, but everything else was like cloudy above. I'm like, well, whatever. We could see something at least.
Got outside,
But like the whole way up, you couldn't see anything. It was like cloudy like the whole way up. So it was, it was fine. But that, it gives you something different too, And then on the way back, when the clouds start clearing, you start noticing things. You're like, oh, look at that. Didn't even see that on the way up.
I also think when you're hiking in like on a foggy day, it makes like the moss and the pine trees just
everything
look so
pop.
Mystical and it's so beautiful.
Yes. I agree. My daughter actually loves hiking right after it rains because everything's just like more colorful, more poignant. And then the smells, are just so.
It's the best smell.
Yes, it is one of the best. That's all I have to ask you for today. I do appreciate your time. You're being here. You're talking about your mental health. Where can everyone find you? Because I know they're going to want to follow you. Her social media is great, everyone. She's funny. She's inspiring. Like, definitely follow her. So where can everyone find you?
Thank you so much. I'm Nichole the Nomad pretty much everywhere. Nichole with an H.
Nichole with an H.
Nichole. So
it's your website, all your social media, everything.
I saw my name with an H. I was like, I got everything so easily. So I was like, it's all Nichole the Nomad everywhere you look.
But again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here discussing about how great hiking is for everybody, physically and mentally, and keeping that message going out on your social media. I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for listening to Her Side of the Trail. There are more hiker stories to hear, so please follow along to hear them as soon as they come out. And if you like this episode, please share it with your friends or on social media. Her Side of the Trail is hosted and produced by me, Lauren Stites. I can't wait to share another hiker story with you next episode.